Hey everyone, and welcome back to another explainer. Today, we are looking at a massive, and I mean massive, strategic shift that just sent total shockwaves through the tech world. Look, for years now, Microsoft's AI empire has essentially been built on top of other people's models, right? They've poured billions into OpenAI, they've heavily backed Anthropic, but at their recent Build 2026 conference in San Francisco, they completely changed their tune. We're going to unpack Microsoft's brand new, fully in-house AI ecosystem and see exactly how they're pivoting to control the entire AI stack.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really grasp the scale of this pivot, we have to understand the core problem of relying on third-party models. Basically, every single time Microsoft uses a model from an outside provider, a chunk of that revenue leaves the building. It's the classic dilemma, right? Renting versus owning. By moving to an entirely in-house stack that runs natively on Azure, Microsoft is looking to fundamentally change the economics, the control, and crucially, the security of their AI offerings.
Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella framed this perfectly at the conference. He said, "The time has come for every company to move from just consuming a frontier model to fully participating at the frontier." That quote perfectly sets the stakes for what we are about to explore. He's essentially saying, hey, we don't want to just be a distributor or an infrastructure provider for companies like OpenAI forever. Microsoft wants to be the ones actually building and participating at the absolute edge of AI research.
So here is the roadmap for today's explainer. Number 1, the strategic pivot. 2, the 7 MAI models. 3, the power of reasoning. 4, meet Microsoft Scald. And 5, enterprise security.
All right, part 1, the strategic pivot, moving to the frontier.
The financial and business motivation behind this move is just crystal clear. By hosting, selling, and optimizing their own intelligence natively inside Azure, Microsoft immediately solves that glaring cost problem of renting AI. It is all about owning the tech stack from the ground up. And what does that mean? It means lower costs for Microsoft, vastly better profit margins, and ultimately it means cheaper AI tools for the developers who are building on their platform.
Moving on to part 2, the 7 new models. This is the foundation. Microsoft didn't just casually release one model, they dropped an entire family. We've got MAI Thinking 1 for heavy text and reasoning. There's MAI Code 1 Flash, which is actually already rolling out across GitHub Copilot and VS Code to turn your plain text into actual software. Then you have MAI Image 2.5 for generating images right inside PowerPoint, MAI Transcribe 1.5 handling 43 different languages, and MAI Voice 2, which can produce entirely new, incredibly realistic voices. They are literally blanketing everything here, from your standard office tasks all the way to complex software development across multiple modalities. Let's move to and see how this builds. Part 3, the power of reasoning, specifically looking at MAI Thinking 1. This is absolutely crucial. MAI Thinking 1 is Microsoft's first in-house reasoning model, and how they built it is a huge deal. It was trained entirely from scratch on clean, commercially licensed data. Zero distillation here, meaning they didn't secretly train this thing on outputs from OpenAI or Anthropic. And why does that matter? Because enterprise companies are terrified of the legal and business risks that come with sketchy training data. By building this cleanly, Microsoft is handing enterprises a highly logical AI that completely bypasses the risk of relying on other companies' intellectual property.
To put it into perspective, under the hood, MAI Thinking 1 operates with 35 billion active parameters, so it's what you'd call a mid-sized model, but it punches way above its weight class because it has a massive context window of up to 256,000 tokens. That means you can drop vast amounts of information, we're talking whole books, massive code bases, into a single prompt, and it can process and reason through all of it at once.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how aggressively Microsoft is positioning this model against the very partners it originally invested in. We're just looking at their claims neutrally here, but the numbers are pretty striking. Microsoft says that after tuning the model for McKinsey, it actually outperformed OpenAI's GPT 5.5 on quality. In blind coding benchmarks, they're claiming it matches Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.6. And the best part for businesses? They project it's roughly 10 times more cost-efficient to run.
Which brings us to part 4, meet Microsoft Scout, the autonomous agent. Okay, before we even look at what Scout does, I want you to really think about this question. How do you actually trust an AI agent that is always on? We aren't talking about a simple chatbot waiting for you to type a prompt. We're talking about an autonomous system making decisions in the background. Handing an AI that level of freedom inside a corporate network is a pretty terrifying reality for most IT departments.
So, Microsoft's answer to this fear is a whole new category they are calling an autopilot. Scout is not a chatbot. Think of it as a digital employee. It stays active in the background, it works completely autonomously,
And it actually has its own identity to take actions on your behalf. But, and this is a big but, it operates strictly under the tight permissions and policies set by your organization. In terms of everyday value, Scout is designed to tackle all that coordination work that piles up while you're busy actually doing your job. It learns your specific context through a unified data layer called MicroSoftIQ. Because it deeply understands your emails, your documents, your team relationships, it can just proactively schedule complex global meetings, it can flag an urgent email you missed, whip up briefing materials for your next call, or even tap you on the shoulder to warn you that a key project decision has stalled out.
Let's move right into Part 5, Enterprise Security and Agents. This is how they are securing the stack.
So how do they make it safe? Microsoft has rigorously secured Scout's actions. It doesn't just roam around as an anonymous ghost in the machine. First, it uses a governed Entra identity, meaning every single action traces back to a specific, known actor. Second, its credentials are scoped strictly to the exact task at hand. Third, before it writes or sends anything, Microsoft's purview policies kick in to prevent data loss. And finally, for truly sensitive actions, Scout hits a hard stop and requires a human sign-off before it can proceed.
To build even more trust, Microsoft built Scout on top of OpenClaw, which is an open-source technology. This is massive because it gives enterprise organizations the total transparency they need. They can validate that their security environment meets strict compliance rules, and they can generate a clean, audit-ready answer to prove to the higher-ups that their always-on agents are operating safely. And this brilliantly illustrates just how far Microsoft is pushing the concept of secure, autonomous agents. Enter a system code named M-. This thing deploys over 100 specialized security agents simultaneously. Basically, Microsoft is taking this autonomous agent swarm and pointing it directly at software security. You have 100+ agents actively reviewing developer code from every possible angle. They reason about complex data flows, they analyze the underlying business logic, and they actively hunt for exploitable chains. This multimodal swarm is catching those deeply hidden vulnerabilities that your normal traditional static code scanners completely miss. And then, it actually proposes context-aware fixes. It's wild.
So pulling this all together, what are we looking at? Microsoft has effectively pivoted its entire business strategy. They aren't just renting out intelligence anymore. They control the entire stack. They've got the 7 foundational AMI models. They've got the developer tools like GitHub Copilot. They have the enterprise data layer with Microsoft IQ. They have autonomous agents like Scout. And they have the hardcore security infrastructure to govern the whole shebang. Which leaves us with a totally fascinating, rapidly shifting dynamic at the AI frontier. Think about it. Microsoft has committed billions to OpenAI and Anthropic, yet they are now acting as their infrastructure provider, their partner, and their direct competitor all at the same time. So the provocative question I'll leave you with today is this. With Microsoft so aggressively building out its own complete ground-up ecosystem, who will ultimately own the next layer of AI? Thanks for joining me for this explanator, everyone. Keep exploring, and I'll see you next time.